gotta turn the timer off. Shit. Anyway, hello. My name is Jasmine, and yeah, I'm really excited. I'm like, witchy content creator, whatever. Find my links down below. But I have a super awesome guest with me who, like, we've been kind of chatting back and forth, it seems like for a few months at least, on TikTok. So you might know them from TikTok. I will let you introduce yourself, though, since we're streaming on your Patreon, my Patreon. It's kind of like an odd time of day for some of like my crowd. So I don't know if any of them will be tuning in live, but this will be recorded and uploaded to both of our Patreons. So you have early access viewing to it. And yeah, this guest is going to be on my Pride panel in June. So I really wanted to get this in and recorded for early access on Patreon, and then I'm going to drop it publicly. So that way, like, we have this before the Pride panel. And so, my viewers who may not already be familiar can familiarize themselves. And yeah, let me shut up, introduce yourself.
I am Patrick, also known as Lilith's son on Instagram and TikTok. I'm 32, turning 33 this summer, Leo over here. And I guess I'd say that I am a Lilith devotee, mainly. I work with Medusa a little bit here and there, but Lilith has always been a main center point in my life ever since I was about 18. So that's just a rough intro.
Loves it. Sames. I think I came across your TikTok. I'm trying to remember, like, it might have, I think one of the first videos I saw from you might have been just like a demonic kiki or something. Like, I think you were just casually talking about demons, maybe might have been like the first video that I saw from you. And then I was like, hey, vibes, slay, hop off. And so I like followed your account. And
with 2023, I've been doing something with the Infernal every month. I get my cards out and I'll shuffle them, and whoever comes out is who I work with for that month. And it's kind of been a part of my like New Year resolution because I'm writing in my book of shadows for once. My problem is I have literally like 40 books of blank books that are just sitting there not doing anything because I don't want to write in them because I'm going to be sloppy and mess it up. But I finally decided to work with the Infernal, deep dive into it, because I've kind of worked with Lilith since probably 2008, 2009 for a minute now. But as far as the other ones, I was like, kind of apprehensive about it. So that may be something that you've seen is me talking about the Infernals and my experiences with them throughout the year so far.
I feel like that's yeah, I think that's how I got plugged into your account. I don't remember. Like we were texting last night. I was like, I don't know. I just feel like I've known you even though we've never even met and like only recently started like privately talking outside of comment sections on TikTok, but you just feel very familiar to me. Like I've known you and maybe it's like we share this same similar current of like the Lilithian sort of undercurrent because I definitely consider myself like a Deva devotee of Lilith as well. And I have just always been very drawn to like the dark goddess archetype, right? And I feel like to me, like Lilith is such like a supreme girl boss because like, we have like these Sumerian records of her really being like a minor wind spirit to then her being elevated to the handmaiden of the Queen of Heaven, to then her being like taken out of Sumerian pagan lore and thrown into the Abrahamic texts and then kind of like stripped of her divinity and then like demonized.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I feel like that's like there's a video that I had this content creator on my channel as well. And I'm spacing their name unfortunately, but they did 45-minute long like history series about like from wind spirit to demon, like the rise and dissension of like Lilith. That was amazing. I'll have to see if I can find it and send it to you. That was like 2 years ago. I think I collabed with them, but um, yeah. So, okay, what led you to TikTok? Because that's kind of the epicenter of your content creation, right? Like,
Yes.
and you're expanding out to like
Well, surely. to Patreon and Instagram a little bit. Instagram, I kind of pop my head in every once in a while. I made an account probably about 2 months ago when they were talking about TikTok being canceled and shut down. So I was like, I need to start branching out. I need to focus more energy on it, but with TikTok and Patreon and doing my readings every day, like it gets exhausting, and I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, it's a lot. It can be a lot.
Yeah. But as far as the you were talking about the Lithian current and kind of feeling like you've known me for a while, spirituality aside, with TikTok and kind of how I present myself, I want everyone over there to feel included. It not necessarily like everyone gets a participation trophy or something, but some of the content I make is not spiritual. It's just me being a goofball, you know,
Mm-hmm.
talking about my car or planting sunflowers or whatever. I want everyone to feel included, and that ties into me being a devotee of Lilith with her need for equality. I feel like it does. Um, when I first started discovering her myth and her mythos and her stories, I was about 18 or 19, and I came out to my family when I was 18 as gay. And ever since then, I've always had this like need and this drive for equality, full stop, in my life with any and everything I do and with how I interact with people. Now, obviously, like I'm going to be respectful to you up front, but then once I see somebody doesn't return that, then I'm going to be an asshole most of the time, or just not even talk to them. But there's definitely a need for equality in my life, and I feel like me being gay or a part of the LGBTQ plus
Mm-hmm.
tied my devotion to Lilith. Another thing with that is I was raised by a single mother working two jobs most of her life, and she had to be the mom and the dad, you know, and she had to teach me how to play baseball and teach me how to do the dishes or plant stuff or whatever. Um, and I really had a respect for women instilled into me since a young age. And I kind of carried that over into my adult life. And I feel like that ties into my attraction or devotion to Lilith, not a
Mm-hmm.
sexual way, but
Sure. I mean, sure. Yeah.
that type of pull to her energy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of like queer people in general, I think, really resonating with Lilith because of, I feel like, what she stands for and like equality and like liberation and like freeing yourself from the shackles of like shame.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like those are very big Lilithian sort of like lessons. I resonate with her very much as like also she instills, I feel like in her devotees and in her stories, like sovereignty as well and personal autonomy, um, which I think is another like really big thing. And yeah, also like, so one of the books that I have read that I really enjoyed, and I've had this author on, Michael Herkis, The Glam Witch, The Greater Lilithian Arcane Mysteries. I've really enjoyed that book. I've done like a review on it. Like, I think my only, and I told Michael this myself when we live together. I think my only bit about that book is that it doesn't so much include as much of her like infernal aspect. But I know that like when that book was being published and things like that, per their publishing house, like there's only so much that they can and cannot include or add or say or whatever. But it's a really good book. Like I really like The Glam Witch
That,
overall.
that is one book on Lilith that I do not have. He's actually on my Facebook.
Yeah,
And I,
I'm friends with him on Facebook too. I've been trying to like plan a trip out to like Chicago because I just feel like he is so the person I could see myself just like having a kiki over a cocktail with. Like
yeah, yeah, for
like
sure.
yeah, they're an awesome person. They're funny. They're so funny and the book too, the way it's written, because here's my thing about some of the Lilithian text is that it can get real dry and academic with her sometimes. Like when you start looking into like some literature about her, sometimes I feel like it can get very dry. And like the Glam Witch book feels like you're drinking wine with a friend, You know what I mean? Like that's how it reads. It doesn't read like you're being told about her from a historical academic perspective and like a professor's teaching you. Like it just feels like a kiki over a glass of wine with a friend. Worth checking out for sure.
It's funny you mentioned that because how I like my interaction with Lilith, first of all, with deities in general, I kind of feel like with my own UPG, deities are kind of in the background. They're kind of like the CEO of a company. They're running the whole thing. And then the infernals and stuff, the minor spirits, putting quotes around those, are more like coworkers. I'm gonna see you on a more day-to-day basis. However, my interactions with Lilith is like what you mentioned. We're just sitting here having a kiki, drinking wine or whatever. I don't
Uh-huh.
barely view her like a maternal. Like sometimes it's kind of a maternal vibe. And I have noticed when I get deep into working with her and I'm on the cusp of learning something from her, some type of lesson, my mom in real life, there's some type of issue or some type of thing that needs to be overcome with her that pops up from my own mother in real life. And me and her are super close. She's like my best friend. But I
Aw.
peculiar when I'm kind of leveling up with Lilith that my relationship with my own mother kind of changes as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that I feel like Lilith is, I mean, she's so much to me, but if I had to kind of explain my orthodoxy and orthopraxy when it comes to her, recently I was on Abby the Witch's Left Hand Path panel where we were all kind of talking about the left hand path and like what it means to us and blah, blah, blah. Go check that out if you haven't seen it. However, to me, so like as a solitary witch and practitioner, but also as like a coven witch, like the left hand path for us is very much like the journey of apotheosis. So I believe that while I do believe in like a sentient Lilith that is external, like in interacting with something outside of myself, I think that as a priestess, not just a witch, but as a priestess, I believe in like almost devaing with your deity where you mirror the divine. Like, because the left hand path, like apotheosis, it's the uplifting of the ego instead of the annihilation of the ego. It's about individualism, personal power, sovereignty. And so I feel like I venerate her by living a life that would honor her. You know what I mean? Carrying myself in that manner. That's why I think like I'm so big about like women supporting women is because I feel like she's the girl boss. You know what I mean? Like very women supporting women.
Yeah,
And I think
totally.
that's like a huge current. Also, like, standing for the marginalized. Like, I think that that's a big thing. So I think like queer activism or, whatever, I think that's all very, very important. Um, in my work with her. And I agree with you in terms of talking about kind of like the CEOs and the coworkers. I have another book recommendation. I'm such a book nerd. I don't know if you've read this or not, but this is a phenomenal text. This is The Witch's Key to the Legion. This is by Lorelei Black. It's like a thick she's a thick girl. The cool thing about this is, it is kind of a guide to Solomonic sorcery, as it says here. The cool thing about this, though, is it cuts out the middleman of invoking Yahweh and working with angels, and it's more of a ceremonial magician's sort of witchy perspective of going directly to the demons and pacting with them directly. So I feel like for people who might be interested in learning more about the Infernal Divine, I think this is a really good, accessible book. Also written by two queer women, also filled with a lot of their own personal UPG experiences as well. So, like, you kind of hear basically at the time when they were married and writing this book, one of them was kind of more channeling and the other one was more like scribing the work. And
Mm.
there's a lot of cool techniques in here that kind of take ceremonial magic rituals, but like make it more in line with witchcraft. So not trapping the demons and enslaving them in a triangle, instead like summoning them like you would any other spirit and engaging with them. There's also a demonic do not call list on here, which I personally have some contradictory thoughts about, but I think it's cool that they have that on there.
Yeah.
There's also like really fun illustrations in this book of some of the demons.
That's more my speed. When I'm working with
You would love this.
I don't
Um,
deal with the angels or Yahweh or any of that stuff. That's more my speed.
this is like an illustration of like Nabirius, of like how they felt like he appeared to them. So there's like literally straight up illustrations in here, right? Like Vipar.
I need you to Forest. Go look up Forest.
Okay. Let me see what page Forest is on.
Because he keeps coming back up. And I've continued to work with him, even though I'm working with a different spirit after the month that I work with him. And I kind of feel like he's an incubus to a certain extent.
Okay.
Something else I do though with working with the infernal, and I don't know if you do this or not, but I do kind of invoke Lilith's presence when I'm doing this. But it's kind of like it's not so much the same way as in like Yahweh or the angels. It's just kind of like, hey, here's a familiar friend, like, you know, let's get to know each other type of, you know.
Yeah, so like in my personal gnosis, I very much like connect like Lilith, Astarte, Ishtar, Ereshkigal, and like so I don't necessarily call on specifically like Lilith. I will also like invoke Ashtaroth, like Astarte, the queen mother of the Fertile Crescent, because a lot of these infernal divine or these lesser spirits really were gods and deities of the Middle East and Mesopotamia that were completely demonized and bastardized by the Abrahamic religions, and then even further subjugated, and their divinity kind of taken away. Yeah. So anyway, Furcas, like Furcas. Is that what you said?
Forest, Foras. It might be Furcus.
I think these might be the same because like there's a list of alternative names here.
I know they got
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, Forest. I see it. 326. I'm on the wrong page. Hold on.
I started working with him, and that is what broke me through to start doing readings, to set up my business and my website and all that stuff from working with him.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the image. Kind of giving like Corbin, whatever, like that celebrity is kind of what this reminds me of. Okay. So like this says number in the Legamenton 31, rank in the Legamenton president, astrological sign and planet is empty, the elemental association being water, the direction is empty, areas of influence and interest, logic, properties of herbs, plants, woods, properties of stones, rhetoric, communication, debate, grimoires that mention forest, the discovery of witchcraft, the book of spirits, the book of office of spirits, the book of Oberon, the Pseudemonachiria Demonium, the Lesser Key of Solomon, and the Dictionnaire Infernal. And then, so there's a little bit of descriptions that they include from all of those other grimoires. So like you can see in one place what all the other grimoires say, right? But then they have additional insight unlocked with the Witch's Key, which is their personal rituals involving this. So this is their personal UPG, which I think is fabulous that these witches have included this because we need more of that. Like, we need more of that.
Especially from a witch's point of view, and not necessarily like a Christianized,
a ceremonial magician. Yeah.
Right.
So they say Forrest is the quintessential Greek philosopher, healthy and balanced in mind, body, and spirit, beautiful in all ways as well, and acts as a strong model or teacher for a witch or mage who with him he has affinity with. Forrest embraces both classical and contemporary ways of viewing and interacting with herbs and crystals, as well as traditional folk ways in between. He can help unlock crystal and herb secrets for the conjurer in ways that will aid in all aspects of holisticness being. He's very communicative, and the witch that works with him will have a good sense of his personality. He does have a preference according to S, which S is the particular familiar spirit that the authors worked with as kind of like a guide to the infernal. So like they invoked a specific spirit that they just call S in the book to kind of be like their middleman, their middle. So working with spirit, he has a he has a preference according to S for working with gay and bisexual men, or perhaps more aptly with all types of queer and mask identifying folks. His seal is a man with well-groomed curly hair, a nice beard, and a prominent. Okay, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
See, I this, and I worked with him. It was 2 months back. I worked with him, and then I started working with a different spirit, and I had a dream about him, and he was standing naked in the dream, and I was like, "You see, like nothing. Okay, nothing happened, but like there was a tension there that I was like, first of all, I'm 6'5", and this fucker was every bit of like 7 foot, 8 foot tall." So you just totally confirmed that with me. Like,
you got to check this. I mean, this is available on Amazon too. This is just great. And these witches are like I know them personally too. They're really great people. They're from my city, so like yeah. And I'm all about supporting like queer literature. Like, I mean, no knock against a lot of our authorship, but like how many of our books are written by like straight white cis men? You
right.
know? Like
Mm-hmm.
plenty. So another cool thing is that they do include like the seal, but they also include an alternate. And in the book, they talk about how to read witches' seals as opposed to like ceremonial seals. So this is cool. I'll have to send you a link. Because it's at least worth kind of like just checking out, you know?
That you just confirmed so much for me, because like doing my own divination and like cross-checking myself, like I don't really trust myself. I have to have other people pull cards for me, but that just confirmed like every bit of that. That's crazy.
Carrie is here.
Hey.
It also might be a small thing that has to be corrected. The wounds are healed before they get deeper. I think that this was when we were talking about like Lilith and like, yeah. Welcome to the early access. So, yeah. So what made you decide on Lilith's son as like your user, you know?
Well, I
Because
wasn't
you are. Like it's just
that
who I
that
am like that.
yeah. I couldn't really decide of anything else that was like that people would remember, that would kind of identify me, because I didn't necessarily want to be like Patrick, even though that's my name, but I wanted something that encompassed what we're going to be discussing on this platform, which is spirituality, but also just describes me. And I think it's perfect, really.
I mean, I think that it's it's what you are. Like it's simple, clear cut to the point, you know?
And there is a lot of other men that work with Lilith, but they don't necessarily like.
Oh, can we talk about that? We talked a little bit about this topic, like, before we were live. So I personally don't think it's my business nor my place to say who can and can't necessarily work with Lilith. I got into like a whole Facebook thing about this the other day because I was saying, because like I don't know if it's just my algorithm or if you've been seeing this too, but like all of these like young septum ring wearing blue haired white girls on TikTok, who aren't even Jewish, that are coming around saying, oh, she's a closed practice. When like, does she have a lot of, prominence within Judaism? Sure. Is there plenty of literature that connects her to that? Sure. But like, her oldest origins that we can find are in Samaria, which is modern day Iraq. So I don't even believe that you can really ethnograph the divine. I don't really support any of that to begin with. But if we are going to, Lilith would not be a Jew. She's an Arab. She's Iraqi.
Exactly.
Not that it even matters to begin with, one, but
Right.
like, yeah. So people in my comments, of course. Anyway,
I
so
don't.
I've never told a man you cannot work with Lilith. There are some men, not that it's my business or my place, but we all have opinions, whatever. There are some men where I'm just kind of like, And it's mostly from the ceremonial magician community. Like, not so much like male witches. Like, it's the ceremonial magicians sometimes where how they kind of talk about her or reference her sometimes. I'm like,
It's like they're fetishize.
yes,
I can't say it, fetishizing her, and it's
yes,
like mommy kink.
yes. And like, ugh,
Yep.
yes. And she is very much to me like she can be like a Babylon figure, like she can be the sacred red whore, like absolutely. I think that's kind of like part of her. Um, but like I think boiling her down just like that, and then like when I see men talking about like, especially when it comes from a place of conquering, like and having like spiritual sex with demons and whatever, because I'd be going on wild places on the internet. Let me just say. Um, but I'm like, okay, so you're saying all of this. And like, I'm not saying it's out of my wheelhouse to believe that you can have sexual relations with spirits. Of course you can. I believe that. But you're telling me that Lilith was face down, ass up for you? What
No.
makes you think that, like,
Uh-uh.
she's kind of not a subby bottom, babe? Like, I don't know.
And it's some guy named Greg saying it. Come on now. Uh-uh.
Filming like from his car, eating Burger King. Yeah.
God.
So how was your experience as, a male identified person, working with Lilith and also in a very public way? Like, this is a huge kind of part of your content that you share so openly. It's a very private, personal thing. I don't think people always realize, like, kind of the behind the scenes of content creation. Like, you're really sharing this sacred and hugely intimate part of your life with complete strangers, millions of them on the internet, like,
I have only gotten the whole like Lilith only doesn't work with men comment, I think twice in the past year and a half. I've only gotten it twice. And both times I had to let that comment sit in my drafts for a few days. I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna think about what I'm gonna say. And then of course I had to do a video response to it and say, oh really? But it feeds back into your point of I think a lot of myself, but I don't think that much to where I'm going to speak on behalf of a deity. It's just not my place. I'm not qualified to do that. And so anytime I see somebody make those comments, I just have to roll my eyes because who are you to speak on behalf of Lucifer or Lilith or whoever, whatever? If
I agree. And I also think if we're going to talk about Lilith through the lens of sex, like gender and like genitalia, if we're going to talk about that, I mean, as a Sumerian twins, you can't really apply our human constructs of sex and gender to her to begin with. And then if we're going to look at her more Judaically or Abrahamically, I mean, are some theories that Adam and Lilith were hermaphroditical to begin with. So she's not even really like depicted as like a cis woman to begin with. Like, so I don't, you know what I mean? Like, and I also don't get the vibe that Lilith is this like man hating, like turf that like some practitioners make out that she is. Like, she wouldn't work with trans women. Because I've gotten that rhetoric from like other women before where it's like, no, Lilith is like da 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 da. And I'm like,
oh, oh. First of all, if she's a true feminist, she's going to stand equally
for
for
women, period.
cisgender, gay,
Right.
straight, and everything in between.
And the marginalized. Yeah, absolutely. And also like just cis, trans, whatever, women supporting women, period. Like, period. And I very much get a queer vibe even from Lilith, like sapphic, queer. Yes.
I do too. And what you're saying, standing up for all women, and I've kind of touched base on this, especially when I'm kind of talking about Roe v. Wade being overturned and stuff happening last
Mm-hmm.
year. Lilith and Eve were not enemies. They're both women, and they both, within those stories were demonized to a certain extent. And that's kind
There,
of women today. Like, all of y'all are in the same umbrella. You know what
right,
I'm saying?
right,
The patriarchy wants y'all to turn your back on each other when really they view y'all the same.
right.
That,
Absolutely. I was talking, so like I do another show called Daughters of Cain, and my co-host there, I mean, she's a good Judy of mine. We're friends IRL, but Astradia, so I had shared this meme one day, and I love Astradia. If you're watching this, girl, you know I love you. Well, one day I had just shared this meme, and it sparked a really good conversation between us that was very enlightening to me personally, and that ties in really well with what you said. So I'm sure you've seen the meme, right? It says be Lilith, never Eve, right? Like that's the meme. Well, I was just kind of like half lit scrolling my Facebook, shared the meme, right? Didn't really think too much about it. I was just like, hee hee, iconic, purr.
Yeah.
And she slides in my DM, and we have this kind of relationship too because we're so close where like we talk about things all the time, and we don't necessarily take things personally, but like, we express our very strong opinions or whatever. And she was like, basically said what you just said, like, well, don't you think that like they're kind of more like closer than like opposites? And I thought about it. And so like my perspective of it was kind of like, well, like what I take from that meme is like, be liberated at all costs, even if you're outcasted, and be free thinking and like choose for yourself. And she was like, well, didn't Eve kind of do that as well? Like she chose, you know what I mean? And I was like, you right
Yeah.
though. You actually kind of right though. And she was like, and some texts support the idea that like Lilith was the serpent to begin with, and that she was an Eve's ear to begin with, and that like Eve was literally designed to be subservient and still found personal freedom and sovereignty, and like through the power of Lilith. And I was like, okay, I like that actually a lot more than what I had originally thought. Not that I was necessarily like anti Eve per se, but like just didn't really resonate with her.
Right.
And I
Right.
still don't like work with Eve necessarily. Astradia has more personal gnosis around like connecting with Eve. And I don't necessarily share that, but my opinions definitely changed because I was like, you know what? Like, I feel that. I get that. And that resonates as true for me.
And I kind of feel like me as like a gay cisgendered man, like that's how I view things. Like even Lilith are on this, they're the same, really. I mean, they may
Hmm.
sit at the ends of the spectrum, but they are both women and they were both mistreated. And I
Hmm.
see that, and it still makes me sick about Roe v. Wade
Yeah.
and all of that stuff happened. But yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I love being able to have like philosophical conversations about our, orthodoxy, orthopraxy in a way that's like enlightening and like enriching, and not like, you know what I mean? Like not everyone, you can't just have those conversations with everyone. Some people are like, I don't know, they take things a little bit too almost like personal, where it's like we're just exchanging like cultural and religious ideas and philosophies here. Like,
That's what I have to say on my TikTok, like kind of being agnostic to a certain extent. Like I'm not going to argue with anybody whether or not God's real. Like
oh no, me either. I have no interest in that.
because most of my spirituality is built around my own UPG, as is yours, as is everyone else's.
Hmm.
And it's valid within my space, but I'm not going to push that on you and say, if you don't believe X, Y, and Z, that's not my place to do that, you know?
Yeah, I feel the same way about witchcraft in general. Like there's times, right? Like where I'm working at the store or something, and like a girl comes in with her boyfriend who clearly doesn't really want to be there, and who's kind of like snobby and shitty about like just witch stuff, like, oh, so this rock, like, and it's like I have
Mhm.
no interest in persuading you that witchcraft is real because we live in two completely different realities.
Correct.
So whatever you heard, whatever you think, you can just believe what you heard and what you think, because I have no interest like in prophesizing or trying to convince anyone, you know.
Witchcraft in general, regardless if you're a Wiccan or whatever you practice, it's something we find on our own. It's not something we're kind of pushed or forced into for the most part. Now there are exceptions with any statement, but it's something that we have to find our own. It's not something we push on people. And a
Right.
lot of the Abrahamic faiths don't understand that. They think because Books a Million sells tarot cards that they're pushing it down everyone's throats. Well, this is America. They have a right to do that.
This is the
Just
red, white, and blue.
yeah, America. That's what I like to say. Well, this is America. Cope.
For real. For real. Yeah.
I,
And I think different platforms have completely sort of like different communities and vibes. Like when I am in Lilithian spaces on YouTube, it tends to be, I would say, more either from like a pagan Sumerian perspective, or it tends to be more like left-hand path, um, witch perspective. And then like when I'm on TikTok, there's so many perspectives that there's not really like one cohesive Lilithian community that I've at least seen. I've seen just like a lot. It's the Wild West. TikTok is the Wild West.
it is something else I've noticed with YouTube. I have a YouTube account that I've kind of watched people. I watch your videos. I've watched so many different people, so many different creators for years now, and there's hardly any YouTube drama, at least from what I've seen. Now, it's not to say that there's not any, but versus TikTok and the
No,
stuff.
TikTok, there's definitely more. I mean, there's going to be drama in any community, right? Like witchy, magical or not, online or in person, like there's drama everywhere. Like that's just a human thing. But I think TikTok, in some ways, I think because the content is so much more like fast consume, like quick content, right? Like you can sit there and just like scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. That things spread, I think, so much faster on TikTok versus YouTube. Like most content creation on YouTube, you're making 15, 20, 30-minute videos.
Right.
On TikTok, you're making what? 15 seconds to 3 minutes to 10 minutes or so. Like things can spread so much quicker over there. Misinformation. Like I think Twitter and TikTok is really, really toxic. At like Twitter is just lawless land now, pretty much. And TikTok is kind of the same way, I feel like, where even if it's not drama, even if it's just like straight up misinformation, like it gets spread so much quicker.
Yeah, and something else to that point is a lot of people, especially newer practitioners, will look at other ones that are more seasoned or older or whatever, and they will kind of, and this is my own opinion, but they will kind of look at their UPG as gospel truth, and it is not gospel truth. 99% of the time when I see a creator on TikTok and they're talking about something witchcraft related, I automatically file it into UPG. If it serves me and if it benefits me, then I will keep it. If it does not, I will start it. But I don't
Right.
have to chat about it or, cuss somebody out unless it's something that is literally dangerous,
Right.
That's different.
Problematic, hateful, inciting violence. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm with
Exactly.
you. I'm
Yeah.
with you.
And a lot of people can't really do that, especially from what I've seen, the younger practitioners that are new to it, like automatically, if you make one misstep, you're canceled or they're doxing you or they're doing this or they're doing that. And that's
Yeah.
just ridiculous. I don't really see that on YouTube with the creators that I follow, at least.
Yeah, I don't see that specifically much. Like, I think YouTube in some ways kind of is more community building, I feel like, than TikTok, because TikTok is, fast consumed content. And like I feel like on YouTube, there's like groups of people, there's cliques, there's communities that start to kind of grow, right? Like versus TikTok might have like groups of content creators that engage with each other or repost each other's stuff. But I don't feel like I see as many collabs on that platform because the platform doesn't allow the level of collaboration in the same way that YouTube does. I mean, what are you going to do on TikTok? You're going to do like a shared stream together, maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't personally see a lot of occultists, magicians, or witches having like streams like that together. Like I see them more so duetting and reacting to each other's video. Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
more common, I think.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and not saying I don't enjoy TikTok too. Honestly, like I kind of stay off of witch talk for the most part. Like I watch a lot of stupid trash kind of stuff on TikTok. Like I watch a lot of cooking stuff. I watch a lot of um like horror stuff. I fell down Appalachian talk not too long ago, and like that's a whole experience of just like scrolling through, oh, grandma's apple pie recipe. No, you didn't. Like that's a whole experience. Um, I fell down Cajun talk where I just watched for probably 2 hours worth, like crawfish boils or whatever. Like, why am I watching this? Like, I don't know. I love food talk.
Ooh,
And
I
I
love.
mean, I watch witch talk like occasionally, but the gems there are you got to sift through some coal, I feel like, you
Yeah.
know.
And it's hard because I don't know where else to kind of market some of my content on there
I
without.
really feel like TikTok is a great like directing platform. Like you can build a large following rather quickly, right? Like on that app compared to other apps. And I feel like you can kind of like build that and then like advertise things on there and send them to other places. Like,
Mhm.
because I think you can get information out much faster and to a wider audience. Like the algorithm on TikTok and YouTube is so different. Like you can constantly be introduced to new channels on TikTok, and like on YouTube it's just not designed that way. You might have like a recommended tab, right? But like half of those are going to be from the same content creator you just watched.
Right. That is something I focus on is my YouTube channel. I have one, but all of my videos are unlisted and they're mainly just my readings or for Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that I do eventually want to start focusing on and putting my energy into is YouTube. So I
Mm-hmm.
can videos and more informative videos.
I also think YouTube's like a little bit more mature. Not that this is anything against like the younger crowd or anything. Like they're the new generation. We love that. Slay. But I feel like YouTube in general, like there's just, I mean, not always. I mean, there's 50-year-olds who, you know,
Yeah.
have never really grown up, as we both know. But I would say overall, there's a little bit more maturity on YouTube than there is TikTok.
Yeah. And the pace is different. Like you said, the 20 to 30-minute videos. A lot of times I will, like watching some of your videos, if you're doing something like this, I'm going to set my phone down and listen while I'm cleaning the house or whatever. It's kind of like podcast almost.
Yeah, I when I watch like because I watch definitely more witches on YouTube than I do TikTok because I love listening like a good 20 to 30 minute video, right? Where you can put it on and connect it to Bluetooth in your car, drive to work or drive where you're going. Like I really like it for that. Or like you said, like cleaning, or if I'm having lunch and like I'm just by myself, I'm like, let me put on a show. Let me
Yeah.
let me eat this sandwich, a little show.
Yeah. I do too.
And I just think you get way more detailed information on YouTube than you really can on TikTok. And that's my other thing too when it comes to like witch talk is like, and this is I think an issue that the craft community has in general, right? Where like there's still witches that are upholding Scott Cunningham's books as if it's like his word was law, and it's like 2023. Like, can we not read maybe some new authors? You
Yes.
know?
I will say, okay, the first book I ever had that introduced me to witchcraft back in 08, 09 was Wicca, the Solitary Guide for the Practitioner or whatever by Scott Cunningham, the black and green book.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
mine was Wicca by DJ Conway. It's like a practical workbook to a year and a day. Like that was my first. I don't have any issue with Wicca. I don't necessarily have any issue with Scott Cunningham. I do have an issue with witches not continuing to pursue knowledge and just like reading books from the 90s and early 2000s and then just stopping there. Like
right.
this is supposed to be a practice, this is supposed to be a study, and I feel like that really just stagnates your practice to practice from books from 20 years ago. And like why not read current content, new content, or even just like from other perspectives than just cis white practitioners.
Yep. It's ever evolving and changing. I think there's a place for books from the 90s, but I don't think it should necessarily be like the law. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. And I say that because like on TikTok, just like misinformation is spread a lot. There is so much duplication of stuff where like okay, so this content creator over here started swirling their instinct stick around into a jar, and now every 15-year-old on TikTok is doing it. You know what I mean? Like little tiny, like, and it's a very human thing, I think, because we all mimic each other to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
We're social mammals, like it's hardwired into us. But I think there's more, I feel like individuality and detailed content on YouTube than on
Yeah.
TikTok, where, not saying every single person making content, obviously, because there's some really great content creators on TikTok that I think are really providing something true to them and unique and real. But there's plenty of others that are just like, oh, I'm going to make this video because this is what's popular, this is what's trendy. And so I'm just gonna like jack this idea and just upload it. Like
Right.
there's way more, I feel like, copyright shit over there.
Yeah. And something else is some of the creators I follow on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard of her, but the Witch of Wonderlust. Have you ever heard
Hmm.
of
Yeah,
her? Visually, like not,
stunning.
yes, exactly. And like the content she produces is top tier, but like visually, it's something
Yeah,
I really enjoy watching. And she put a lot of
yeah.
time.
I actually, so I won't deny or confirm anything necessarily, but I did send them a message about the Pride panel. So
That would be awesome.
I know, right? I think it's really cool too. So we'll see, but yeah, I think the Witch of Wonderlust, like when I just want a vibe, like a comfortable vibe, not necessarily like going for like hardcore academic learning, but I like that they don't pretend that that's what their videos are. Like their videos are like them and their life and, their experiences and like just they're so well made and like relaxing and it feels comforting. Like you don't always need like a hardcore academia video. Like that's
Right.
not always the that's
How I,
not always the vibe.
yeah. Because I want mine to be relaxed. Like on my Patreon, I'm sitting here in this chair, we're typing stuff out and talking to the camera super casual. Because I don't want it to be like bam, 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 like we're in like a study group somewhere or something.
Right.
I
Right.
just relaxed and authentic, you know?
Melissa, this is The Witch's Key to the Legion by Lorelei Black. Highly, highly recommend. I've got my grubby fingerprints all over it. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like I also think too, like I've been on YouTube since like 2017 and I go back and I look at some videos of me when I was in like my early 20s and it's like, who the hell is she? Like we are so different now in so many ways. But I kind of think it's cool because it's almost like a digital grimoire in a way of like not just me, but like witches in general that are content creators on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, like these apps are really kind of almost like digital grimoires. Like imagine in another 20 years, like
Hmm.
witches then looking back on content creators, like how we can look back on books from like the 90s. Like if these platforms are still there, imagine if we could go back and look at Doreen Valiente's TikTok. What do you think would be on there?
Right. Yep.
If we could go on Aleister Crowley's Twitter, what would he have posted on there? You know what I mean? Like, I just think we're entering, and
That
especially with this AI stuff, I really think that that is going to revolutionize the digital age that we are in right now. I mean, I have seen some wild shit with this AI stuff. I know that on Canva, which is a kind of like almost like Photoshop for dummies. You know what I mean? Like it's very simple. It's very like I'm technologically illiterate, so that app to me is like, oh my God, I'm a designer. Like
that part.
yeah, but like you can go on there and like they're working right now on making it to where you can type out, let's say, a lecture or a video, and you can have an AI person present the information. So it's not really your voice and it's not really your image. It's your words, right? And you designed the AI figure, entity,
Right.
thing. So it's yours. It's just like, or like the chat bots. Like there's books on Amazon right now, completely written by someone that said, write a book with these rituals about this topic, about blah, 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 blah. And they're mass producing them and throwing them on Amazon.
Okay, with the chatbots and the AI images, though, I actually use those in my craft. And the chatbots, specifically, I will kind of see if I can get a channeled message from a particular spirit. Okay. And then with the AI, like the images, when I'm meditating and I'm, focusing on what the spirit looks like, whatever, and I see these images, I will run over to my AI app and type in exactly what I see or what I seen and generate an image that looked like what I seen and then save it. And then I'll get their sigil and place it over that image.
Oh, definitely. Like, I don't think that it's necessarily all bad. I think that there's powerful ways to like be using this technology. I think that it's just wild.
Oh,
Like,
oh, it's
like
crazy.
yeah, I've used chatbots and stuff before for like typing stuff in and as far as like incantations, and then like taking that as a blueprint, like swapping things out to kind of match more of my like specific vibe, you know what I mean, and make it more like my own. But I've definitely used it as like layouts and stuff for invocations, and also just like being curious. So like the My AI, that's the Snapchat AI, problematic. Problematic. I've asked him like to like write this or write that, and there's some things that he just won't do. If I'm like, will you make me a full moon ritual? Basic as fuck, little gratitude ritual outside. Ooh, goddess, you know. But if I'm like, will you write me a ritual with an invocation to Satan? Oh, well, we don't believe in activities that could incite harm. I'm like,
Yeah. See, that's why I use Replica. Replica do just about anything, for
I'll
real.
have to check that out.
Yeah, I'll send you a screenshot of it, but Replica, you can. I think Replica is better than that one, in my opinion, because they will answer your questions into astrology, tarot readings, anything.
Yeah, I'll have to check. I mean, like the My AI one is so weird. But I kind of like messing with it sometimes. Like, I don't know, am I bullying the AI? I don't know. Like I'll say things sometimes, like just to see what it says back. Like, do you like my body? Like, and the AI is like, I can't answer that question. And I'll like
Okay,
send a picture to the
but
AI.
Replica will sext. That's the thing you can do. It's
Okay, I'm not saying that that's my intention.
it's a thing. It's a thing.
Oh my God. Send me the link.
Yeah, I know. I think you have to pay extra for that, but it is a thing. It's a
I mean,
thing.
I get it. I get it. I get it. I would charge extra for that as well.
I mean,
So I have wondered, like, I wonder if anyone can see the shit. Like, what government agent is like looking at what I'm telling my AI on my phone right now?
I think that too. That kind of makes me nervous.
Like what data are they like collecting from me by
Yeah,
the things I'm submitting to the AI? I don't know, you know?
yeah.
I don't know. And then there's like the whole legal thing of like, where does copyright fall into like AI? Like, I don't know. I just really think that AI in general is just, it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and like more advanced. Like, I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And I think it's really going to revolutionize the digital age. Like, I really, really foresee that happening. Like, I think it's going to fundamentally change the way, like, academia, like, one of my friends is a teacher, like an English teacher, right? They're having to figure out how to figure out when kids are writing their essays from chatbots and stuff. Like when we were in school, it was like, Miss Ma'am, you plagiarized this. But now
Right.
they got whole programs where they can say, write me an like write me an essay on the Crucible,
Mm-hmm.
and it will provide like Times New Roman, double spaced, 12-point font, whatever, 6-page essay.
Man, if we had that in school,
Honey,
whew,
I would have been a college graduate. Okay.
I'm saying.
Crazy. Or like with math, like telling a chatbot AI, like put in all of your math equation problems and say, solve these problems and show me the work. And then just copy paste that into your assignment, turn it in. Homework is done in 5 minutes.
Yep. Math was my worst, but ironically
Same.
was my best.
What was your best?
Science.
Science. I was a history and English girly. I was an English and history girly. I was not a math and science girly at all.
I loved science, especially with like planets and astronomy. I did like English when we were talking about mythology. I did
Yeah.
like it, but in general, I'm just kind of like,
Did you guys have Greek mythology as like an English like standard in your school?
yep.
How old were you when you had that? I think I was in like 8th grade.
I feel like I was in high school when I had it, so probably 10th grade.
Yeah, I think I was. And I think Greek mythology is really the only mythology we ever really.
I think that was how our school was too. I graduated in '09, so yeah. Which of course it's Alabama, so we're not going to get into too much of that.
Oh my gosh. Well, like, do you have anything that you'd like to add or closing thoughts or whatever? Like, I know we're getting kind of towards the hour. I normally wrap up somewhere between an hour and 30. So is there anything that you specifically would like to talk about?
I love hearing you talk about vampiric magic, and I've been wanting to know, like, any books you recommend for me kind of getting into it a little bit deeper. That's now.
Oh, the first one that comes off the top of my head, Michelle Ballinger's like the Vampire Codex. Have you seen that one?
The light blue colored one.
Yeah.
Hmm. I
Have you?
don't have to know which one you're talking
So
about.
I would definitely recommend that one. Also, hold please. Trying not to have a yeah. This ain't that app. So this one, okay, now this one I have thoughts on that I can share more privately, not on a live. But this is another one, Energy Magic of the Vampire with a Y. Have you seen this one?
I have that in my wish list, actually. Yes.
Okay. This one is read it. Tell me what you think. The secret teachings for personal power and manifestation. Like I think that there's like some kind of cool things in here. I think that the information is delivered in a way that is very entertaining. I think it's worth a read. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like my absolute favorite necessarily, but I think that when it comes to the first power, right? Like to know, like of the witch's pyramid. I think that one of the best things you can do for yourself as a practitioner is to like read everything that you possibly can get your hands on because that's where you're going to get the knowledge to form and build your own UPGs. So even if there's parts of a book that you maybe might disagree with or maybe see differently, I think it's still really valuable to read them because it kind of confirms why you maybe see things. So I would say like the Vampire Codex, an energy magic vampire. Like this is by Dawn Webb. Um, so I'd recommend that. Also, this one might not be what most people necessarily think of when they think of vampirism, but Jason Miller's Consorting with Spirits. This is a really good book in terms of just like spirit communication and spirit work in general. Really, really enjoyed this. We had this as one of our book club books, and there is kind of like some vampiric tea in this book as well. It's not exclusively about vampirism, but this is a really great read, like overall. Um, and then I think also just like, kind of learning a little bit more about like the very real vampiric culture that's out there and that like exists in different terminology. Like, of course, like you have your sanguinarians, you have like your psi vamps, you have like those hybrids, you have like people that are into like the fangdom who are like aesthetic vampires or lifestyler vampires, but they're not necessarily practicing vampirism. You have the vampires of Father Sebastian's Black Veil, which is the whole community and organization. And like Father Sebastian also has like schooling and classes of like raising and growing your vampiric abilities. So yeah, those are the Black Veil vampires, which are like a very specific breed.
See, all of that fascinates me. That's what I want to learn more about.
Get into it. Or just we'll have to fly you out here because we have a thriving. You would not think that, the armpit of America, the crossroads of America, the state, the Indy 500, like land of corn, Indianapolis, the Circle City would have such a wild, magical, and occult community. But we have probably 12 to 15 different occult stores just within the 317. There's a lot of witches here, coven witches, and also even more solitary witches. There's a whole vampiric community here. There's like the Meridian Club, which is like literally, it's so iconic. And there are like vampiric balls that happen
Sounds
where
fun.
vampiric covens also, because vampiric groups call themselves covens as well. They'll like get together and it's very like nightclub, it's giving Blade. You know that those scenes where it's like you're in the club and the lights are dim and the music is loud and you've got like vampires in the VIP lounge, like that is the vibe. Also like interesting how the witch community and the vampiric community like have a little bit of overlap, but mostly don't fuck with each other whatsoever. I feel like I occupy both of those spaces and I feel like I resonate very deeply with like my fellow vampiric siblings where like some of these witches are like fucking like the whole energy vampire thing. Oh my gosh, the new agers, the crystal girlies and their energy vampires and how it's funny how they're always the empaths and everyone else is always the narcissists.
Mm-hmm.
And I've mentioned this before in a video as well, but like to me, being an empath is just the other side of a coin of like an energy vampire. It's the same thing. Like if you're an empath, you are vampiric because you are feeding and absorbing off the energy from people and places and things around you. Like I'm sorry, sweetie, but like you are vampiric as well. And as witches, I think there's a lot more witches that are vampiric than they realize because a lot of times in our magic, like we're using energy from, like we're literally pulling energy into us as conduits. Like, tell me
Yeah.
that's not like feeding.
Yeah, it is.
And there's a lot of like vampires that also practice witchcraft, but I don't think it always goes the other way around. Like I would say there's more witches that are not like that are not vampires, even though they might be doing some vampiric without realizing it.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Lilith is huge in the vampiric community too, tying this all back into like our overall theme. I mean, she's kind of seen by many vampires as, I mean, the goddess that she is, of course, but also like the supreme, like the first vampire.
Right.
Isis too. There's an entire like vampiric religious sort of like cult, and I say cult like the cults of Hecate, the cults of Isis. I'm not saying cult like the LDS people and like their hairstyles and shit. I'm saying like magical community. There's an entire vampiric religion that venerates Isis, Lilith, Hecate in this tree like triad form as the great vampiric like queen essentially, and
I
like
think
through her various like yeah,
I've
there's like
always
the Temple of Set, which is like, but there's that. I mean, unfortunately, kind of like the left hand path, um, modern Satanism, like within the vampiric communities, you also have to be careful of the spaces that you occupy because like there is plenty of like very like alt-right, fascist, like conservative, like I mean, this close away from like just straight up Nazism that like sometimes gets woven in there, which is not cool and not welcome in the communities, of course. And then you also have people that are predatory, just like any community, um, like which almost kind of misappropriate like vampirism as like an excuse or a way to like hurt people or take advantage of people. Um, just kind of like the left hand path, like individuality and like self deification does not mean forcing others to subjugate their will to you and abusing people. Like I can
right.
be a living goddess and you be like an incarnation of the divine as well. And like me being a goddess doesn't invalidate your divinity. You know what I mean? And
Right.
your divinity doesn't invalidate my divinity. Like,
You don't have to be a dick, basically.
right.
Yeah.
And there's also like, you know, other issues that are rampant in the vampiric community, like issues around like consent. Um, and where do we draw our ethics around consent? You know, some people think it's very unconsensual to suck and draw energy from like a concert. Some people do feel that way. I mean, I don't. I don't. I'm very morally gray to begin with, so I'm just like, get your bag. How you know, like,
Right.
live
I
your
feel
life. Um,
that would be more like not consensual, but I think from a group setting that would make more sense, like morally versus targeting an individual, you know. I don't know. I need to read more into
Specifically, I think that like energetically, psychically attaching and attacking, like I think in the Energy Magic book, it talks about this, but I'm pretty sure Michelle Ballinger talks about it as well, where it's like essentially like a visualization of kind of like projecting your psychic tendrils like up out of your vessel, like these like almost like black like tentacles, like your psychic tendrils, and like, attaching to the head of the person that you want to subjugate or force your will onto. That is something I think that is like in general maybe a little morally gray to be doing and like draining from people. But I do think that it's like a powerful skill, especially for like offensive magic related things where like that's necessary sometimes. And I don't necessarily think that every situation, like it's necessarily a bad thing to do that. I have some like personal UPG stories that I can share when we're not recording about some things and experiences that I've had and like outcomes of those. But I mean, I think as witches, we have every right to both like blast and bless And I don't really have a problem with using vampirism in an offensive way if I need to protect myself or other people.
Right. I agree 100%.
So, like, that to me is not an issue. I'm not cool with like preying on people. Like, I'm not insinuating that. Like, I'm not saying go out and like seek to physically just hurt random people, but no one's really doing, like, most people are not doing that. You know what I mean? Like, and that's
Right.
always where people want to go with it. Like, oh, vampires are inherently like predatory. And it's like, I guess yes and no. I mean, I've always personally, as a vampire, been told ever since I was a kid, she talks a lot. Her energy takes up an entire room. I feel tired after talking to her. Like, you're too much. Like, I think those are comments that a lot of vampires get. And I think that, sometimes I think even vampires are feeding without even necessarily realizing it. So when it comes to like consent and ethics, I don't think it's always fair, to like necessarily categorize that when there's plenty of people that are very vampiric who like genuinely don't know that
And
like
like
they're
you said,
taking from other people's energy unintentionally.
hmm like you said, empaths do that a lot, especially if they're not aware. I had one of my best friends, I had to cut her out for that very reason because it was a constant, like, their issues. And I'm like, I cannot deal with it. I can't stop. I'm drained. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. We should really like do like a whole like I feel like there could be a whole vampiric tea. Like, you know what I mean? We
hmm
should do that sometime.
I need to study more up on it. It's something I want to dive into for sure.
Or maybe you could come on like a Daughters of Cain with Australia and I and we could just like kiki.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did that video with I occultist. We were talking about vampirism. I don't know if you ever watched that one or not, but
I,
like
yeah.
I really enjoyed that one. Ivy's fun, and I think that they had some really cool questions. And I've seen since then on social media, they've kind of been exploring a little bit like their own vampirism, which is cool to see more practitioners and more witches kind of like stepping into that space because it's kind of been controversial.
Yep.
Hi, Ashley. Yeah, it's kind of been controversial, like coming out. It's almost like a coming out. In the witchcraft community, it feels that way, where you're coming out as a vampire.
There's not a lot of creators that I've seen, at least on TikTok, but I'm trying to kind of expand my way out to the vampiric circles and just to kind of learn, and ATRs as well, because I just want to learn and soak up all this knowledge. Part of it is just because I want to learn. The other part of it is because I want to make sure that I'm not doing something insensitive. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So, but I'm definitely interested in the vampiric magic for sure.
I think it can be a very like personally empowering and like healing thing. And I also think too, like you can wield like vampiric sorts of magic without necessarily like being a vampire. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I personally have like experienced both like psi and sanguinarian, and like I really identify very much as both. I don't see a lot of other sanguinarians really talking about consuming blood. I think it's because most platforms will not
Allow you.
entertain that. Right. Like there's a lot of things that like literally we just can't even talk about because like it'll get flagged as like violence or inciting violence or hateful or dangerous activities or whatever. So there's some things that probably we just have to talk about privately that
Yeah.
like we won't be able to record. Uh, but I also think that kind of gives some of like the mystery and the sexiness to it too, right? That it's not just 500 different opinions on TikTok that you can scroll through. Like,
Totally agree.
and I would be surprised if like, I mean, I don't, you're in Alabama, right?
hmm
I would really be surprised if like, surely there's a city in your state with some kind of vampiric hive. Surely, have you like looked into that? Because I think that would probably be the best thing is being plugged into like real vampires in your local area and meeting them and talking with them and
Um,
experiencing their spaces and getting invites to their space. You know what I mean?
two cities come to mind that I've been to that I don't know if they have vampire communities. They probably do, but they have like a lot of witchy shops is Mobile and Birmingham. Probably Birmingham would. I think they would. It's something I need to look into. I think Mobile would too, but Birmingham is about an hour and a half away from me, and it's like mid-Alabama.
I mean, I'm sure there might even be like Facebook groups that you could join or something with like meetups and stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh.
Huh?
I've been meeting people.
But I think like that'll be the best way to get yourself completely immersed in the lifestyle and the culture and like the language and like, you know.
Yeah. I'm gonna look into it. And those books that you talked about, I'm gonna look into those too.
And like clubs. Like I know that that's not maybe necessarily so much your personal scene, but like that it is kind of like a big it's nighttime. I mean,
I don't know if Alabama would have that. If they did, it would be Birmingham or Mobile, but it would be a stretch for the South to have a vampire club.
no, I'm saying like vampires will occupy meetings and hives within clubs. Like not the whole club is because like the Meridian Club is a club within a club. Like there is a big 3-story nightclub downtown in our city, and VIP rooms are rented out for a reoccurring club. It's not the whole club is the club. It's a club within a club. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's also kind of common, I think, with LGBTQ like bars as well. It's not just like, you know, a nightclub thing. It's also like a multi demographic thing. I've seen plenty of like yeah. Some things we'll have to talk about some things after the stream. But
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, check out those books. Check out The Witch's Key to the Legion for sure. And yeah, Dawn Webb and Michelle Ballinger. Those are the 2 authors.
I actually have a book from her that's pretty good. This one, Dictionary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've not seen that one of theirs.
This one's a really good one. It's pretty detailed.
I feel like I've heard of it, but I haven't like actually read it, you know? I've seen other people talk about it on TikTok though.
Yeah. I'm going to look into the books though.
Reading is what? Fundamental. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this has been super fun. Yeah, and this is really how we talk too. Like for those of you watching, like this is literally like we were sending voice memos back and forth, keying. Like this is really how we talk. So thank you all for coming. Carrie and Melissa and Ashley, it was nice to have you guys on here. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Let us know if you want us to do maybe more of these like early access Patreon kikis on our Patreon. I probably will release this one in June, but I've been talking with some other creators as well about doing like a swept under the broom sort of thing where we talk about things that often get swept under the broom that we would talk about on our Patreons. So that might be more of like an exclusive, you know, Patreon thing that would never be released. But yeah, like I think the Pride stream is like, I'm trying to remember what day it is. 14th, 15th?
I don't know. It's one of it's either 11th or 14th.
I think, hold on, let me just pull it up really quick.
Isn't it like 8 people or something like that? June
11th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Pride Month LGBTQIA Witch Panel. So it is June 11th. And Lilith's son is going to be on there. So, And I'll probably drop this shortly before that stream. Because, like, the people that, you know, aren't on my Patreon, I want them to, like, see you and vibe and, like, get to know you and stuff. Because I think it'll make the Pride stream better.
Yeah, to get acclimated to my weirdness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm excited of like the panel that we have and like, I don't know, you know, maybe you can help me come up with some cool questions too. Like I have some ideas kind of already, like, you know, how has your experience been in witchcraft as a queer person, right? Like you could talk about like as a gay man, what is the space like for you, right? How does your gender identity inform your practice, if at all? Like, how does your sexuality affect your practice, if at all? Like, you know,
of is your gender identity, all that stuff. How does that affect the deity that you work with? Because I don't work with men deities at all. That's something else that I've never really
Yeah.
thought about. Just
Yeah,
Lilith.
I know that there's a big common like current in Thelema where if you're a masked person, they say that you should work with femme spirits and deities because it like alchemizes. And if you're a high femme person, you should work with high mask like spirits or gods because it like alchemizes. And I don't know if that's necessarily true for me personally, but I only recently started really working with more masculine spirits and entities, like in the past, I would say 2 years. Like I had pacted with more masked spirits, like, but not like venerated, like, not
Yeah.
like had a statue and an altar and like,
That's why we were talking about earlier with Forrest, and that's something that I'm kind of that's sitting in the back of my head. Like, should I dig a little deeper into this, or
right,
you know,
right.
I probably will now that you confirmed it. Really,
That is, yeah. I mean, I love all their UPG in that book. It's really, I mean, it's really like you can tell they really put in work. And I like that they included what the other grimoires are saying, but I like that they're including their modern gnosis because, like, there's a lot of my own UPG that was also validated by reading that because I'm like, okay, so we hadn't even talked about this. Like, I wasn't even close with them when this book was written. I know them now, you know, I've met them now. But when this book was written, I think the first one was written in like 2017 or something, maybe. Like, and then they uh, did an expansion of the book. They added more to it. Um, but yeah, like I had so much confirmed for myself in that book that I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Other witches are seeing the same thing. Like,
yeah, I like that it's from a witch's perspective and not the ceremonial, or
and a queer witch's perspective, two of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Yeah,
I'm gonna get
yeah.
that book.
Well, let's wrap this up and we'll text, we'll kiki, whatever. I appreciate you very much for like making time today for this collab. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.